Hello, healing warriors. This is Rachel Merrill, and it has been a few weeks, maybe even a month, since I have done the Healing Warrior Wednesday. But I felt that today was especially important in the aftermath of the school shooting that happened in Texas yesterday, to address the topic of rage and what can we do with this anger. We've all experienced plenty of things that make us angry. Most of us don't know what it's like to live through what the families went through yesterday. And I wanted to light a candle for them, which I did last night. So I have this candle here. This candle is for all of the families who have ever been affected by gun violence. I want us to all come together and set aside differences. Think about the children and adults, now their families won't see them physically again. And this makes us, of course, very sad and angry. And so I wanted to talk about that today. The importance of grieving. And I still have my candle right here, but I felt that it was important to read a part of my book. Of course, I have not lived through what these families have went through, but I have lived through rage about something happening to my family. And so I'm going to read you an excerpt of my book and then talk a little bit more about what we can do, because praying can be wonderful, but we need to do something. So this is my book, I Sang Anyway. And I just have a little excerpt I'm going to read about my experience, one of my experiences with what do I do with rage. This is from the chapter Fortissimo under A Shocking Development for Ginger. This is about my stepdaughter. On June 30th, 2020, our family changed forever. I was helping my son, Gabriel, with the dishes when our doorbell rang. My husband answered the door at the other end of our house and found a police officer standing there. The officer shared that the police department had received a call from one of Ginger's friends expressing concern that she was suicidal. With concern, Conan told the police that he had dropped Ginger off at her mother's house half an hour prior. The police officer drove to Mary Jane's house. And keep in mind, I've changed all the names. After he left, Mary Jane immediately called my husband to scream at him. She yelled, "Why didn't you tell me that a police officer was coming to my house?" Honestly, we knew she would be upset either way, and the less time we had to hear her yelling, the better. On the morning of July 1st, Mary Jane took Ginger to Riverbend for a psych evaluation. Mary Jane called my husband for insurance information. When Conan tried to ask her what was happening, she hung up on him. We had zero information until Conan had the idea to call Concord Hospital that night. The nurse who spoke to him seemed to behave strangely. She seemed hesitant to even share that Ginger was there. 4 days later, we found out that my husband could only have supervised phone calls with Ginger. We were stunned to learn that Gabriel and I were ordered to have no contact with Ginger, yet we had no idea why. I was beside myself. My husband was devastated. We were both so confused. What was happening? I got into my car, feeling a rage building in me that needed to go somewhere. I drove onto the highway and began screaming and crying. I was so very angry. For so long, I felt like I had worked hard to preserve my family despite the chaos from my stepkid's mother. I couldn't help but feel that she had dropped a bomb onto our family. For all of July and August, I did not see Ginger or Greg, my stepson. Conan saw Ginger a couple of times at the hospital with special permission. Several times I sat on her bedroom floor and cried for her. I missed her so much. I whispered into the air, I just want my girl to come home. So that is just a little snippet of a really dramatic story. If you haven't read it already, I highly recommend you get a copy to go through the questions of reflection. That is something that you can do in learning to let go of the rage. Now, when I found out that the mother of my stepkids had coached my stepdaughter to falsely accuse my son of rape, of course, I was quite enraged, among the other things that happened that I reveal in the book. So the natural reaction then is that we want to fight back, right? That's what we want to do. And there is something to be said for the power of anger. However, what if we take a different approach and we alchemize the anger? What do I mean about alchemizing the anger? Well, it's not a simple process. That's part of the problem. When we have an event like what happened yesterday, that should never happen to any family. When we have these events that happen to my family, which again are not the same thing, but they're still horrible, what can we do about the violence in the world, about people not behaving in a caring way that they should? Well, immediately, the first thing that we can do is examine ourselves. Look at your heart. The first thing we want to do is attack the other person, but that will just continue to enforce a negative toxic cycle. When you have all this rage built up in you, what can you do? You can break it down into some steps, but the steps are not linear and it happens at your own pace. Number one, you're going to need to express that anger in a healthy way. And that is not by attacking other people. It is not by blaming a political party or a religion or one particular group of people. The blaming does not help anybody. So first, examining your heart. How are you bringing peace to the world? How am I bringing peace to the world in my everyday actions? How am I bringing peace and love? How am I doing that? Okay, so you examined yourself. What about your beliefs? Maybe you have some limiting beliefs, But then you have this rage. Where does that rage go? So the second step, you need to transmute this anger. This is where you, as the alchemist, you are the creator of, co-creator of your outcomes. You can alchemize the anger in this. How do you do this? Okay. First, after examining your heart, you're going to need to get really honest with yourself and let go of the anger in a healthy way. I'm not saying get rid of it. But get rid of as much of the toxic anger as you can. How do you do this? There's several ways you can do this. You can get in a car, scream, swear as much as you want, like I did, like I mentioned in the book. Scream, swear, say the things you wish you could say to that person or people. Get it all out. Say the names, say the rage, get it out. Don't get into a road rage accident when you're doing this. Just focus on pretending the person or people are next to you. Get it out. Say what you wish you could say. You can get nasty in that moment because you're feeling pretty nasty and they're not there, so they can't hear you. Once you let it out, once you get all of it out, drive as long as you need to. You need to drive 100 miles, screaming and swearing and crying. Go ahead and do that. You can also write a letter as if you're writing to that person, and then burn the letter safely, maybe in a sink, or if you happen to have a cauldron, then use that. Something safe where you can use water to put it out if you need to. No burning anything down. And once you've done these things, where you are using the elements, like weeping into your bathtub, burning the letter, screaming in your car. Once you've done these things, now you can sit back and step number 3. So you reflected on yourself, you let go of some of that toxic anger. Now you're going to transmute. And how do you do that? You're going to take, after you've taken a deep breath and meditated, you're going to take inspired action. And you're going to use your anger as fuel for good. How do you do that? Use your anger for fuel as good in the way that you focus on, what do I want to happen that is for the highest good? Instead of focusing on what I don't want to happen, because law of attraction, you're just bringing more attention to what you don't want to have happen. Focus on what you do want to have happen. So maybe that means that you are, for example, in the Texas incident, donating money to Sandy Hook Promise, donating to an action group that will do something about this, and, looking at what do they believe? Do your beliefs line up with that? Can you get behind the action that they're proposing? And so then also, what can you create? Do you see how that is a different energy? For example, I took my anger and I wrote this book because I wanted to help other people. I want other people to realize that you are not alone. And we are here for you. And whenever crap you're going through, you don't have to go through it alone. So I just ask you to please light a candle. Reflect on how you can be peace. let go of most of the anger, and then use the rest of that anger for good. Hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you.